The Industrial Revolution, a monumental period that began in the late 18th century, marked a seismic shift in the way humans produced goods, transported materials, and organized their societies. This transformation originated in Great Britain, primarily due to a unique confluence of social, economic, and political factors that set the stage for unprecedented change. At the heart of this revolution was the agricultural revolution, which had occurred prior, laying the groundwork for industrialization. As farming techniques improved through innovations such as crop rotation and selective breeding, agricultural productivity soared. This increase meant that fewer laborers were required in the fields, leading many to seek work in burgeoning urban centers. The rise of enclosure movements, which consolidated land and pushed small farmers off their properties, further accelerated this trend. The resulting migration to cities transformed the demographic landscape, fueling the labor market necessary for industrial factories. This migration was not merely a matter of numbers, it was a profound social shift. The rural lifestyle, characterized by community bonds and agrarian cycles, was supplanted by the anonymity and hustle of urban life. Cities began to swell, creating a labor force eager for employment in factories that were beginning to spring up. As a result, urbanization became one of the most defining features of the Industrial Revolution, altering the relationship between individuals and their environments. The invention of the steam engine by James Watt in the 1770s was perhaps the most significant technological advance of this period. This revolutionary device transformed how energy was produced and utilized. It allowed for the mechanization of various industries, particularly textiles, which became the first to fully embrace steam power. Factories could now be located away from water sources, as they were no longer reliant on water wheels for power, further enhancing production capabilities. This ability to harness steam power not only increased efficiency but also led to larger production scales, as machines could run continuously without the limitations of natural water sources. Furthermore, the British Empire's vast network of colonies provided access to raw materials such as cotton, coal, and iron, fueling the industries that would dominate this new era. The insatiable demand for raw materials fueled imperial ambitions, leading to increased colonial expansion. The economic benefits derived from colonies bolstered the British economy, creating a cycle of dependence where industrial output directly correlated to imperial resource extraction. As factories proliferated, they attracted workers from rural areas, seeking better opportunities. The workforce began to shift from agrarian lifestyles to industrial jobs, fundamentally altering the social fabric of society. This transition was not without its challenges. Workers faced long hours, low wages, and often dangerous conditions. However, the promise of a steady income and the chance to escape poverty drew many into the factories. The allure of industrial work was often romanticized, presenting an opportunity for upward mobility that many believed was achievable through hard work and dedication. Moreover, the social consequences of this transformation were profound. The rise of a new social class, the industrial bourgeoisie, marked a shift in power dynamics. This class, composed of factory owners and entrepreneurs, began to exert significant influence over the economy and politics, challenging the traditional aristocracy. The economic power held by industrialists reshaped the political landscape, leading to conflicts over labor rights, working conditions, and the role of government in regulating industry. In conclusion, the seeds of change had been sown, setting the stage for the Industrial Revolution to not only alter the landscape of Britain but to impact the entire globe profoundly. The transformation from agrarian economies to industrial powerhouses was just beginning, and the subsequent developments would forever change the way societies operated. As we move forward, we will explore the technological advancements, societal changes, and global ramifications that define this incredible era. As we delve deeper into the Industrial Revolution, it is essential to highlight the myriad innovations and inventions that emerged during this period. The era was marked by a wave of creativity and ingenuity that fundamentally altered the way goods were produced and distributed. This innovation was not limited to one industry but spanned across various sectors, each contributing to the industrial landscape. One of the most significant innovations was the power loom, invented by Edmund Cartwright in 1785. This device mechanized the weaving process, drastically increasing the speed and efficiency of textile production. As a result, cloth that once took weeks to produce could now be manufactured in a matter of days. The power loom not only revolutionized textile manufacturing but also contributed to the rise of factories, where hundreds of workers could operate machinery under one roof. This concentration of labor facilitated the mass production of goods, transforming textiles from a cottage industry into a centralized operation. In addition to the power loom, the cotton gin, invented by Eli Whitney in 1793, transformed the cotton industry. This simple yet effective machine dramatically sped up the process of separating cotton fibers from seeds. The cotton gin made it economically viable to grow and process cotton on a large scale. As a result, the production of cotton surged, making it one of the most valuable commodities of the time. The demand for cotton fueled the expansion of plantations in the American South, linking the agricultural economy of the United States with the industrial needs of Great Britain. This connection had profound implications for the economy, society, and politics of both regions. Another remarkable advancement was in transportation. The construction of the steam locomotive, pioneered by George Stephenson in the early 19th century, revolutionized the movement of goods and people. Railways began to crisscross the landscape, connecting urban centers with rural areas and facilitating the transport of raw materials to factories and finished products to markets. The railway system not only transformed commerce but also reshaped the very geography of nations, contributing to urbanization and changing the dynamics of trade. The speed and efficiency of rail travel made it possible for people to move quickly between cities, fostering a sense of national unity that had previously been lacking in the sprawling British Isles. Moreover, innovations in iron production played a crucial role in the Industrial Revolution. The introduction of the Bessemer process in the 1850s allowed for the mass production of steel, a material that was stronger and more versatile than iron. This advancement was instrumental in the construction of buildings, bridges, and railways, symbolizing the industrial age's architectural achievements. The development of steel production marked a turning point in engineering and construction, enabling the creation of larger, more durable structures that defined urban skylines. The revolution in communication was equally groundbreaking. The invention of the telegraph by Samuel Morse in the 1830s allowed for instantaneous communication over long distances. This innovation not only transformed personal communication but also revolutionized business practices and political communication, creating a more interconnected world. The telegraph enabled merchants to receive real-time information about market conditions and prices, allowing them to make more informed decisions. In politics, the ability to communicate swiftly across great distances facilitated coordination and organization among political movements, laying the groundwork for future advancements in communication technology. These innovations fueled an era of rapid growth and change. As factories became increasingly mechanized, the nature of labor began to shift. Workers were required to adapt to new technologies, leading to the development of specialized skills. This, in turn, altered educational systems as the need for a more educated workforce became apparent. Vocational training programs emerged, aimed at equipping workers with the skills necessary to operate machinery and engage with increasingly complex production processes. Education became a tool for social mobility, enabling individuals to secure better jobs and improve their living standards. In summary, the Industrial Revolution was characterized by remarkable innovations that reshaped industries, societies, and economies. These inventions not only increased productivity but also transformed the way people lived and worked. The impacts of these technological advancements extended beyond the workplace, influencing daily life and social structures. As we continue our exploration, we will examine the profound societal impacts of these technological advancements, including the rise of urban centers and the emergence of new social classes. The Industrial Revolution not only transformed the methods of production but also catalyzed a massive wave of urbanization, reshaping the landscape of society in profound ways. As factories sprouted in urban centers, people flocked to cities in search of work, leaving behind the agricultural lifestyles that had defined generations. This movement marked a significant shift in human habitation, with more than half of the population transitioning from rural to urban settings for the first time in history. The rapid influx of people into cities created an urgent need for housing, infrastructure, and services. However, the existing urban frameworks struggled to accommodate the growing populations. Cities like Manchester and Birmingham experienced unprecedented growth, leading to overcrowding and a myriad of social challenges. Tenements and hastily constructed housing emerged to shelter the masses, often with poor sanitation and inadequate living conditions. Streets became congested, and public services were overwhelmed, resulting in a significant decline in the quality of life for many urban dwellers. As the population surged, so did the challenges associated with urban living. The rise in factories led to increased pollution, as coal-fired engines belched smoke into the atmosphere and waste products contaminated waterways. Diseases like cholera and typhoid fever became rampant, exacerbated by unsanitary conditions and a lack of clean drinking water. Public health crises emerged as the cities struggled to cope with the consequences of their rapid industrialization. Efforts to improve sanitation and provide clean water were often met with resistance due to the high costs involved, leading to a public outcry for reform. In addition to health challenges, the social fabric of urban life began to shift. The concentration of workers in factories led to the emergence of a distinct working class, often referred to as the proletariat. This new class faced harsh working conditions, long hours, and minimal pay. Labor rights became a pressing issue, and workers began to organize themselves into unions to advocate for better conditions, wages, and hours. Strikes and protests became commonplace as workers sought to improve their lot in life. The formation of unions marked a turning point in the relationship between workers and employers, as collective bargaining became a powerful tool for advocating for change. At the same time, urbanization fostered a rich cultural landscape. As diverse populations converged in cities, new ideas, art forms, and cultural movements flourished. The working class began to engage with new forms of entertainment, education, and political discourse. Public parks, theaters, and libraries emerged, offering spaces for leisure and learning, even amidst the challenges of industrial life. The cultural exchange that occurred in urban centers became a driving force behind movements such as Romanticism and Realism in art and literature, as artists and writers sought to capture the complexities of modern life. This urban transformation was not just limited to Britain. The ripple effects of industrialization spread across Europe and North America, as cities worldwide experienced similar patterns of growth and change. The phenomenon of urbanization was a global one, driven by the demand for labor in an increasingly interconnected world. Cities like Paris, New York, and Berlin underwent rapid transformations, each grappling with the challenges and opportunities presented by industrialization. In conclusion, the urbanization that accompanied the Industrial Revolution was a double-edged sword. While it facilitated economic growth and cultural development, it also brought about significant social challenges and hardships. The stark contrast between the wealth generated by industrialization and the poverty experienced by many workers highlighted the need for reform. As we move forward, we will explore how these challenges led to reforms and movements that sought to address the inequalities that arose during this transformative period. The challenges posed by rapid urbanization and industrialization spurred a wave of social reform and activism, as individuals and groups sought to address the inequities and hardships faced by the working class. The plight of factory workers, who endured long hours in dangerous conditions for meager wages, could not be ignored. As public awareness of these issues grew, so did the momentum for change. The early 19th century witnessed the formation of labor unions, organizations created to advocate for the rights of workers. These unions aimed to improve working conditions, secure fair wages, and reduce the grueling hours that defined industrial labor. Notable among these early labor movements was the Grand National Consolidated Trades Union, established in 1834, which sought to unite various trades and secure a collective bargaining position for workers. The formation of unions was met with resistance from factory owners and government officials, who viewed organized labor as a threat to the existing social order. As workers organized, they began to stage strikes and protests to demand better conditions. One of the most significant events in this struggle was the 1819 Peterloo Massacre, where a peaceful demonstration for reform in Manchester turned tragic when cavalry charged into the crowd, resulting in numerous injuries and deaths. This event shocked the nation and galvanized public opinion in favor of reform, highlighting the urgent need for political and social change. The aftermath of the Peterloo Massacre prompted increased scrutiny of government practices and led to calls for greater accountability and representation. Simultaneously, the issue of child labor came to the forefront of the reform movement. Factories often employed children as young as 5 or 6, subjecting them to grueling hours and hazardous environments. The Factory Acts, a series of legislative measures introduced throughout the 19th century, aimed to address these abuses by regulating working hours and conditions for women and children. The passage of these laws marked a significant step forward in the fight for workers' rights and highlighted the growing awareness of social justice issues. Another critical aspect of the reform movement was the push for political representation. The expanding industrial cities demanded a voice in parliament, as the existing political system largely favored landowners and the aristocracy. Reformers called for the extension of voting rights to the working class, culminating in the Reform Acts of 1832 and 1867, which gradually expanded the electorate and reshaped the political landscape. These reforms were a response to the changing social dynamics brought about by industrialization, as the working class increasingly demanded a seat at the table. Moreover, the feminist movement began to gain momentum during this period, as women sought equal rights and opportunities in the face of industrialization. Women who worked in factories were often paid less than their male counterparts and faced discrimination in the workplace. The push for gender equality became intertwined with the broader labor movement, leading to calls for suffrage and improved working conditions for women. The formation of groups such as the Women's Social and Political Union in the early 20th century underscored the growing demand for women's rights and representation in political discourse. As the 19th century progressed, the collective efforts of labor unions, social reformers, and activists began to yield results. The establishment of minimum wage laws, improved working conditions, and educational opportunities marked significant victories in the ongoing struggle for social justice. These reforms laid the foundation for the modern labor rights movement and highlighted the power of collective action in driving societal change. The legacy of these movements continues to resonate today, as labor rights remain a crucial aspect of social justice advocacy. In conclusion, the social reforms and labor movements that emerged during the Industrial Revolution were pivotal in shaping modern society. The struggles of workers and reformers laid the groundwork for the rights and protections that many individuals enjoy today. The ongoing fight for social justice, equity, and representation traces its roots back to this critical period in history. As we continue our exploration, we will examine the global impacts of the Industrial Revolution, including its economic, political, and social consequences. The Industrial Revolution was not confined to Britain. Its effects reverberated across the globe, reshaping economies, societies, and political landscapes in numerous countries. As industrialization took hold in Britain, it paved the way for similar transformations in Europe and North America, while simultaneously fueling imperial ambitions that would define international relations for decades. The global demand for raw materials and new markets led to increased colonial expansion, particularly by European powers. Countries such as France, Germany, and Belgium sought to acquire colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Americas to secure access to vital resources needed for their burgeoning industries. The quest for resources was driven by the insatiable appetite for raw materials such as rubber, cotton, and minerals, which were essential for industrial production. This era of imperialism was characterized by the scramble for Africa, where European nations raced to claim territories on the continent. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, convened by Otto von Bismarck, formalized the partitioning of Africa among European powers, often with little regard for the existing cultures and societies. This colonial expansion had devastating consequences for indigenous populations, leading to displacement, exploitation, and the disruption of traditional ways of life. The industrialized nations also sought to expand their political influence through imperialism. The establishment of colonies provided not only economic benefits but also strategic advantages in global politics. Control over territories enabled nations to project their power and influence on the international stage, leading to increased competition and tensions among imperial powers. The resulting geopolitical landscape would sow the seeds for future conflicts, including the two world wars of the 20th century. The impacts of industrialization were not limited to economic exploitation and political domination. The cultural exchange that occurred during this period was profound. European powers often imposed their cultural norms and values on colonized societies, leading to the spread of Western ideals and institutions. However, this cultural imperialism was met with resistance, as indigenous peoples sought to preserve their traditions and assert their identities in the face of foreign domination. This tension between colonial powers and colonized societies would shape the course of history in the decades that followed. In the United States, the effects of industrialization were similarly transformative. The country underwent rapid industrial growth in the late 19th century, becoming a major player in the global economy. The expansion of railroads and the rise of industries such as steel and textiles contributed to urbanization and immigration, as millions flocked to American cities in search of opportunity. This period, often referred to as the Gilded Age, was marked by both economic prosperity and stark social inequalities, as the benefits of industrialization were unevenly distributed. The global impacts of the Industrial Revolution also extended to labor movements and social reforms. As industrialization spread, workers around the world began to organize and advocate for their rights. The struggles faced by laborers in Britain resonated with those in other countries, leading to the formation of international labor movements that sought to address issues such as working conditions, wages, and workers' rights. The principles of solidarity and collective action became foundational to labor movements globally, as workers united across borders to demand change. In conclusion, the Industrial Revolution was a global phenomenon that reshaped economies, societies, and political structures around the world. The pursuit of industrialization fueled imperial ambitions, leading to the exploitation of resources and peoples while simultaneously fostering a rich exchange of ideas and cultures. The legacies of this era continue to influence contemporary global dynamics, as the effects of industrialization and imperialism are still felt today. As we move forward, we will explore the cultural and intellectual responses to the challenges posed by industrialization, including artistic movements and philosophical developments that emerged in response to this transformative period. The profound changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution sparked a variety of cultural responses that sought to articulate the complexities of modern life. As societies grappled with the consequences of industrialization, artists, writers, and thinkers emerged to challenge prevailing narratives and explore new ideas. This period saw the birth of several artistic and literary movements that reflected the tensions and contradictions of the time. One of the most significant movements was Romanticism, which arose as a reaction against the mechanization and rationalism associated with the Industrial Revolution. Romantic artists and writers emphasized emotion, individualism, and a deep appreciation for nature. They sought to evoke feelings and experiences that contrasted sharply with the cold, mechanistic worldview fostered by industrialization. Figures like William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge celebrated the beauty of the natural world and the importance of human emotion in their poetry. Their works often depicted pastoral scenes and explored themes of spirituality and connection to nature. In visual arts, Romantic painters such as J.M.W. Turner and Caspar David Friedrich captured the sublime beauty of landscapes, often imbuing them with a sense of emotional depth. Turner's dramatic seascapes and depictions of storms conveyed the power and unpredictability of nature, serving as a counterpoint to the industrial forces reshaping society. These artists sought to remind viewers of the beauty and majesty of the natural world, contrasting it with the encroaching industrial landscape. Simultaneously, the realist movement emerged as a response to the social and political issues stemming from industrialization. Realist artists and writers sought to depict everyday life with honesty and accuracy, often focusing on the struggles of the working class. They aimed to shed light on the harsh realities of industrial life, rejecting the idealized portrayals common in Romanticism. Artists like Gustave Courbet and Honoré Daumet portrayed the lives of laborers, revealing the difficult conditions faced by those who toiled in factories and on the streets. In literature, the realist movement produced authors such as Charles Dickens and Émile Zola, who chronicled the lives of the urban poor and critiqued the societal structures that perpetuated inequality. Dickens' novels such as Oliver Twist and Hard Times highlighted the plight of children and the struggles of the working class, while Zola's works explored the impact of industrialization on individuals and communities in France. These writers aimed to raise awareness of social injustices and inspire reform through their vivid portrayals of contemporary life. The Industrial Revolution also spurred advancements in science and philosophy, leading to the emergence of new ideas about society and human nature. Thinkers such as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels analyzed the socio-economic changes brought about by industrialization, arguing that capitalism inherently led to class struggle and inequality. Their work, particularly the Communist Manifesto, published in 1848, called for the working class to unite and overthrow the capitalist system, advocating for a revolutionary approach to social change. In contrast, other philosophical movements, such as utilitarianism, sought to promote social reform through rational thought and practical ethics. Figures like John Stuart Mill argued for individual liberties and the greatest happiness principle, advocating for policies that would enhance the welfare of the greatest number of people. These philosophical debates shaped the intellectual landscape of the time and influenced social and political reforms in the years to come. In summary, the cultural responses to the Industrial Revolution were varied and multifaceted, reflecting the complexities of an era marked by rapid change. The tensions between Romanticism and realism, along with the emergence of new philosophical ideas, highlighted the struggle to understand and navigate the profound societal shifts that accompanied industrialization. As we continue our exploration, we will examine the lasting legacies of these cultural movements and their impact on contemporary society. As the Industrial Revolution progressed and the struggles of the working class became increasingly apparent, a variety of political ideologies emerged that sought to address the challenges posed by industrialization and capitalism. Among these, socialism gained prominence as a response to the economic inequalities and social injustices that characterized the industrial landscape. Socialism emerged as a movement advocating for collective ownership and control of the means of production, challenging the capitalist system that prioritized profit over people. Early socialist thinkers, such as Robert Owen and Charles Fourier, proposed models of cooperative living and labor that aimed to improve the conditions of workers. Owen, a successful industrialist, established utopian communities in the early 19th century, emphasizing the importance of education, social welfare, and workers' rights. His vision of a cooperative society sought to create a harmonious environment where labor and community could thrive together. The mid-19th century saw the rise of more radical socialist ideologies, largely influenced by the writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Their work, particularly the Communist Manifesto, called for the working class to rise against the bourgeoisie and overthrow the capitalist system. Marx and Engels argued that capitalism was inherently exploitative, leading to class struggle and alienation among workers. They envisioned a future society where the means of production would be collectively owned, eliminating class distinctions and promoting equality. The ideas of Marx and Engels resonated with workers across Europe and inspired the formation of various socialist and communist parties. The First International, established in 1864, brought together labor movements and socialist organizations from different countries, advocating for workers' rights and international solidarity. This global perspective underscored the interconnectedness of labor struggles, as workers united across borders to fight for common goals. However, the rise of socialism was met with fierce resistance from capitalist governments and industrialists. Fears of revolution and social upheaval prompted authorities to crack down on labor movements, leading to violent confrontations between workers and the state. Strikes and protests were often met with repression, as governments sought to maintain order and protect the interests of the ruling class. In response to the challenges posed by socialism and labor movements, many capitalist governments began to implement reforms aimed at improving workers' conditions. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the introduction of various social welfare programs, labor laws, and protections for workers. These reforms were often viewed as concessions to the demands of the working class and an attempt to mitigate the potential for revolution. The rise of socialism also influenced political discourse and the development of new political parties. In many countries, socialist parties gained traction, advocating for progressive reforms and the rights of workers. The establishment of social democratic parties, which sought to achieve socialist goals through democratic means, marked a significant shift in political ideology. These parties aimed to balance the interests of labor with the realities of capitalism, advocating for policies that promoted social justice while working within existing political systems. In conclusion, the rise of socialism and political ideologies during the Industrial Revolution reflected the growing awareness of social injustices and economic inequalities. As workers organized and fought for their rights, new political movements emerged to challenge the status quo and advocate for systemic change. The legacy of these ideologies continues to shape political discourse today, as debates over social justice, labor rights, and economic equity remain central to contemporary society. As we move forward, we will explore the global ramifications of the Industrial Revolution, including its impacts on war, diplomacy, and international relations. The Industrial Revolution not only transformed economies and societies but also had profound implications for global conflicts and international relations. As industrialized nations sought to expand their influence and secure resources, competition among powers intensified, leading to a series of conflicts that reshaped the geopolitical landscape. The rise of nationalism during the 19th century played a crucial role in fueling tensions between nations. As industrialization progressed, countries began to assert their power on the global stage, often driven by a desire for territorial expansion and access to resources. The quest for colonies became synonymous with national pride, as countries sought to demonstrate their strength and status in an increasingly interconnected world. The competition for colonial possessions led to conflicts such as the Boer War, 1899 to 1902, and the various imperial conflicts in Africa and Asia. These wars highlighted the intersection of industrialization and imperialism, as advanced weaponry and military technologies developed during the Industrial Revolution transformed warfare. The use of steam-powered ships, machine guns, and railways enabled industrialized nations to project their military power across the globe, often with devastating consequences for indigenous populations. Moreover, the alliances formed between industrialized nations created a web of tensions that ultimately contributed to the outbreak of World War I. The interconnectedness of economies and the competition for resources exacerbated rivalries among European powers. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 acted as the catalyst for a conflict that had been brewing for years, fueled by militarism, nationalism, and the complexities of alliance systems. The war itself was marked by the industrialization of warfare, as new technologies transformed battlefields and tactics. Trench warfare, chemical weapons, and heavy artillery characterized the conflict, resulting in unprecedented levels of destruction and loss of life. The industrial capabilities of nations allowed for the mass production of weapons and supplies, fundamentally changing the nature of warfare. In the aftermath of World War I, the repercussions of industrialization and imperialism were felt worldwide. The Treaty of Versailles and the redrawing of borders in Europe and the Middle East led to new tensions and conflicts that would persist for decades. The economic hardships faced by many nations in the wake of the war, combined with the unresolved grievances from the conflict, contributed to the rise of totalitarian regimes and the onset of World War II. Furthermore, the legacy of the Industrial Revolution continued to influence global conflicts in the 20th century. The Cold War, which emerged in the aftermath of World War II, was characterized by ideological battles between capitalism and communism, both of which were shaped by the industrial transformations of the previous century. The competition for resources and influence between the United States and the Soviet Union had roots in the geopolitical dynamics established during the era of industrialization. In conclusion, the Industrial Revolution had far-reaching implications for global conflicts and international relations. The quest for resources, national pride, and competition among industrialized nations fueled tensions that ultimately culminated in wars and reshaped the geopolitical landscape. The legacy of industrialization continues to influence contemporary conflicts, as nations grapple with the challenges of globalization, resource scarcity, and the consequences of past actions. As we move forward, we will explore the environmental impacts of the Industrial Revolution, examining how industrialization has shaped our relationship with the planet. The Industrial Revolution, while heralded as a period of technological and economic advancement, also brought about significant environmental consequences that continue to shape our relationship with the planet. The rapid industrialization and urbanization of the 19th and early 20th centuries led to widespread ecological changes, as human activity transformed landscapes and ecosystems in profound ways. One of the most immediate effects of industrialization was the extensive deforestation that accompanied the demand for timber and land for agriculture and urban development. Forests, which had once provided habitats for countless species, were cleared to make way for factories, railroads, and cities. This loss of biodiversity disrupted ecosystems and contributed to soil erosion, altering the natural balance of the environment. Air and water pollution became pervasive as industrial activities released harmful substances into the environment. Factories emitted smoke and pollutants, leading to poor air quality in urban areas and contributing to respiratory diseases among the working class. Rivers and lakes were contaminated by industrial waste, threatening aquatic ecosystems and the health of communities reliant on these water sources. The consequences of pollution were often felt most acutely by the poorest populations, who lived in close proximity to industrial sites. The exploitation of natural resources was a defining characteristic of the Industrial Revolution, as the demand for coal, oil, and minerals intensified. The extraction processes often disregarded environmental sustainability, leading to habitat destruction and depletion of resources. The quest for fossil fuels laid the groundwork for our current energy landscape, setting the stage for ongoing debates about sustainability and climate change. As industrialization progressed, the concept of nature as a resource to be exploited became entrenched in societal values. This mindset contributed to the neglect of environmental stewardship and the prioritization of economic growth over ecological preservation. The consequences of this perspective are now evident as we face the challenges of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and environmental degradation on a global scale. In response to the environmental crises resulting from industrialization, the late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the emergence of early environmental movements. Figures such as John Muir and Rachel Carson advocated for the protection of natural spaces and raised awareness about the impacts of industrial activity on the environment. Their efforts laid the foundation for modern environmentalism, highlighting the need for sustainable practices and conservation. Today, the environmental consequences of the Industrial Revolution serve as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the importance of balancing economic growth with ecological responsibility. As we grapple with the challenges of climate change, resource scarcity, and environmental degradation, we must reflect on the lessons of the past and work towards a more sustainable future. In conclusion, the environmental impacts of the Industrial Revolution are profound and far-reaching. The transformation of landscapes, the pollution of air and water, and the exploitation of natural resources have shaped our relationship with the planet in ways that demand urgent attention. As we continue our exploration, we will examine the legacy of the Industrial Revolution in contemporary society and the ongoing efforts to address the challenges it has created. The Industrial Revolution has left an indelible mark on contemporary society, shaping our economic systems, social structures, and cultural values in profound ways. As we reflect on the legacies of this transformative period, it becomes clear that the innovations and challenges of the Industrial Revolution continue to resonate in the modern world. Economically, the principles of industrialization laid the groundwork for the global capitalist system that dominates today. The shift from agrarian economies to industrial production established patterns of trade, investment, and consumption that drive the global economy. The interconnectedness of markets and the rise of multinational corporations can be traced back to the advancements in production and transportation that characterized the Industrial Revolution. Socially, the impact of industrialization is evident in the ongoing struggles for labor rights and social justice. The labor movements that emerged during the Industrial Revolution set the stage for the protections and rights that workers enjoy today. However, many of the issues faced by workers in the 19th century persist, as the gig economy and precarious labor conditions challenge the hard-won gains of the past. The legacy of activism and collective action remains relevant as workers continue to advocate for fair wages, safe working conditions, and social equity. Culturally, the Industrial Revolution influenced the development of modern thought and artistic expression. The tensions between industrial progress and human experience continue to shape literature, art, and philosophy. Contemporary artists and writers often grapple with the complexities of modern life, reflecting on themes of alienation, environmental degradation, and the impact of technology on human relationships. The cultural movements that emerged in response to industrialization laid the groundwork for ongoing dialogues about identity, society, and the role of art in reflecting and shaping the human experience. Moreover, the environmental legacy of the Industrial Revolution remains a pressing concern in contemporary society. The ecological consequences of industrialization, including climate change and loss of biodiversity, have prompted a global movement towards sustainability and environmental justice. As we face the urgent challenges of our time, the lessons learned from the environmental impacts of industrialization remind us of the need to prioritize ecological stewardship and responsible resource management. In conclusion, the legacy of the Industrial Revolution is multifaceted, encompassing economic, social, cultural, and environmental dimensions. As we navigate the complexities of contemporary society, we must acknowledge the profound changes brought about by this transformative period and strive to build a future that honors the lessons of the past. The ongoing struggles for justice, equity, and sustainability reflect the enduring impact of the Industrial Revolution, reminding us of our responsibility to create a better world for future generations. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Industrial Revolution and its lasting influence on our lives today. The Industrial Revolution not only transformed economies and societies but also had profound effects on the daily lives of individuals. As technology advanced and new machinery was developed, the fabric of everyday life changed dramatically, altering how people worked, lived, and interacted with each other. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, much of life was governed by agrarian schedules, with families working together on farms. The rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons, with activities such as planting and harvest marking the passage of time. However, with the advent of industrialization, particularly in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, this traditional way of life began to shift. Factories emerged in urban centers, drawing people from rural areas in search of employment. The promise of wage labor offered new opportunities but also brought with it significant challenges and changes to the structure of everyday life. The rise of factories meant that work became more regimented. Instead of flexible hours based on agricultural needs, factory workers faced strict schedules. The whistle signaling the start and end of the workday marked a new era where time was closely monitored and productivity was measured. This shift fundamentally altered the way people perceived time, introducing a more mechanical understanding of daily life. People were now expected to adhere to a clock rather than the natural cycles of day and night. In addition to changing work patterns, the Industrial Revolution brought about significant advancements in technology that directly impacted daily life. The introduction of machines such as the spinning jenny, power loom, and steam engine revolutionized textile production, allowing for faster and cheaper manufacturing processes. These advancements not only increased output but also reduced the need for skilled labor, as unskilled workers could operate machines with relative ease. As industries grew, cities expanded rapidly to accommodate the influx of workers. This urban migration led to the creation of densely populated urban centers, which, while offering new opportunities, also presented significant challenges. Overcrowding became a major issue, with many families living in cramped, unsanitary conditions. The development of tenements and slums highlighted the stark contrast between the industrial wealth generated by factories and the poverty experienced by many workers. Moreover, the rapid growth of cities fostered a unique social environment where people from diverse backgrounds and regions came together. This melting pot of cultures led to the emergence of new social dynamics, including the formation of communities that provided support and solidarity among workers. Social interactions were transformed as people sought to navigate the challenges of urban life, leading to the rise of various social organizations, clubs, and movements that aimed to address the needs of the working class. The effects of industrialization were also felt in the realm of consumer culture. As production increased, goods that were once considered luxuries became more accessible to the average person. The rise of department stores and advertising began to shape consumer habits, encouraging people to purchase items that were once out of reach. This shift in consumption patterns reflected a broader cultural change, as material wealth became a measure of success and status in society. However, with the rise of consumerism came a new set of challenges. The relentless pursuit of profit led to the exploitation of workers and the environment, as industries prioritized production over welfare. The conditions faced by laborers in factories were often harsh, with long hours, minimal pay, and unsafe working environments. The struggle for fair wages and better working conditions became a central issue for the labor movement, which sought to address the inequalities that emerged in industrial society. The impact of technology extended beyond the workplace. It transformed transportation and communication as well. The development of the steam engine revolutionized travel, making it faster and more efficient. Railroads expanded rapidly, connecting cities and facilitating the movement of goods and people. This new infrastructure not only supported economic growth but also changed the way people experienced space and time. Travel that once took days or weeks could now be completed in a matter of hours, shrinking distances and fostering greater interconnectedness. Similarly, advancements in communication technology, such as the telegraph, revolutionized how information was shared. Messages that once took days or weeks to deliver could now be transmitted almost instantaneously. This innovation altered business practices, politics, and social interactions, as people could communicate across vast distances in real time. The immediacy of communication paved the way for a more interconnected world, where news and information spread rapidly, influencing public opinion and shaping events on a global scale. In conclusion, the impact of technology on everyday life during the Industrial Revolution was profound and multifaceted. The transformation of work patterns, urban life, consumer culture, and communication reshaped society in ways that continue to resonate today. While technological advancements brought about new opportunities, they also introduced challenges that required individuals and communities to adapt and respond. As we move forward, we will explore the responses of workers and communities to the challenges posed by industrialization, examining the emergence of labor movements and social reforms. As the Industrial Revolution progressed, the struggles faced by workers in factories and urban centers led to the emergence of organized labor movements. These movements sought to address the grievances of workers and advocate for their rights in the face of exploitation and harsh working conditions. The fight for labor rights was marked by a series of pivotal events, strikes, and the formation of labor unions that would forever change the landscape of work. In the early days of industrialization, workers faced grueling conditions, long hours, and meager wages. Many laborers worked 6 days a week for 12 hours or more, often in dangerous environments where accidents were common. The lack of regulations and protections meant that workers had little recourse in the face of exploitation. This grim reality sparked outrage and a growing awareness of the need for collective action. One of the first significant organized labor movements emerged in Britain in the early 19th century, with the formation of trade unions. These unions aimed to protect the interests of workers by advocating for better wages, working conditions, and job security. Early trade unions faced fierce opposition from employers and the government, which viewed them as a threat to the established order. Strikes were often met with violence, and union leaders could be arrested for their activities. Despite these challenges, the labor movement continued to grow, fueled by a rising consciousness among workers. The combination of economic hardship and a desire for dignity in the workplace led to a series of strikes and protests throughout the 19th century. The Chartist movement in Britain, which demanded political reforms and universal suffrage, was closely tied to the labor movement, as workers sought to gain a voice in the political process. The fight for labor rights gained momentum with the rise of notable figures who championed workers' causes. Leaders such as Samuel Gompers in the United States and Robert Owen in Britain played pivotal roles in organizing labor movements and advocating for social reforms. Gompers, the founder of the American Federation of Labor, AFL, focused on pragmatic goals, such as better wages, shorter workdays, and the right to unionize. His approach emphasized the importance of collective bargaining as a means to improve the conditions of workers. In the United States, the labor movement faced its own set of challenges, including violent confrontations with authorities and opposition from business leaders. Events such as the Haymarket Affair in 1886 and the Pullman Strike in 1894 highlighted the tensions between labor and capital. The Haymarket Affair, which began as a peaceful rally advocating for an 8-hour workday, turned violent when a bomb was thrown, resulting in deaths and arrests. This event not only illustrated the volatility of labor relations but also solidified the image of labor activists as radicals in the eyes of the public. As labor movements gained traction, they also influenced political discourse and policy. The struggles of workers led to the establishment of labor laws and protections aimed at improving working conditions. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, governments began to respond to the demands of labor movements by enacting laws related to minimum wage, working hours, and workplace safety. These reforms represented significant victories for organized labor and reflected a growing recognition of the need to address the plight of workers. The rise of socialism and the labor movement also intersected during this period, as many labor leaders were influenced by socialist ideologies that advocated for the rights of workers. The International Workers' Association, also known as the First International, brought together socialist and labor groups from different countries to promote international solidarity among workers. The principles of socialism resonated with many labor activists, who sought to challenge the inequalities perpetuated by capitalism. Despite the gains made by labor movements, the struggle for workers' rights was far from over. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw a rise in anti-union sentiment, as business leaders and governments sought to suppress labor activism. Strikes were often met with violent reprisals, and the legal framework surrounding labor unions became increasingly restrictive. The struggle for recognition and legitimacy was an ongoing battle for labor movements around the world. In conclusion, the emergence of labor movements during the Industrial Revolution marked a critical turning point in the fight for workers' rights. As workers organized and fought for better conditions, they laid the foundation for the labor protections and rights that exist today. The legacy of these movements continues to influence contemporary labor struggles, as issues of wage inequality, job security, and workers' rights remain relevant in today's global economy. As we continue our exploration, we will examine the role of women in the workforce during the Industrial Revolution and the unique challenges they faced. The Industrial Revolution significantly altered the landscape of work, and one of the most profound changes was the entry of women into the workforce. As factories emerged and urban centers grew, women began to seek employment outside the home in unprecedented numbers. However, their experiences in the workforce were marked by unique challenges and societal expectations that would shape their lives and roles in society. Historically, women had been primarily responsible for domestic duties, including childcare, cooking, and textile production within the home. However, with the advent of industrialization, economic necessity drove many women to seek paid work in factories and workshops. The allure of financial independence and the need to support their families prompted women to enter the labor force, challenging traditional gender roles in the process. Women found employment in various industries, with textile manufacturing being one of the most prominent. Factories hired large numbers of female workers, often paying them lower wages than their male counterparts. The work was typically grueling and monotonous, requiring long hours and harsh conditions. Women laborers faced numerous challenges, including workplace safety hazards, exploitation, and a lack of legal protections. Despite these obstacles, women began to organize and advocate for their rights in the workforce. The formation of women's labor unions was a significant development during this period. Women united to demand better wages, working conditions, and the right to vote. They recognized the importance of solidarity and collective action in their fight for equality. Women like Sarah Bagley and the Lowell Mill Girls became influential figures in the labor movement, advocating for reforms that would improve their lives and the lives of future generations. The struggle for women's rights extended beyond the workplace. It intersected with the broader movements for social and political change. The suffrage movement, which sought to secure voting rights for women, gained momentum alongside labor activism. Many suffragists recognized that economic independence was a crucial component of women's liberation. As women entered the workforce, they became increasingly aware of their social and political status and began to demand equal rights. The experiences of women in the workforce varied based on race, class, and geography. While white women in urban areas found employment in factories, women of color often faced additional barriers. They were frequently relegated to the lowest-paying jobs and experienced discrimination in hiring practices. The intersectionality of race and gender highlighted the complexities of women's experiences during the Industrial Revolution, as different groups navigated unique challenges in their pursuit of economic opportunity and social justice. The representation of women in the workforce also influenced cultural perceptions of femininity and womanhood. As women began to earn wages and participate in public life, traditional notions of domesticity were challenged. The changing roles of women were reflected in literature, art, and social commentary of the time. The emergence of the new woman archetype, characterized by independence and ambition, became a symbol of the changing social landscape. Despite the progress made during the Industrial Revolution, the struggle for gender equality continued long after the era concluded. The foundation laid by women labor activists and suffragists paved the way for future movements advocating for women's rights. The fight for equal pay, workplace protections, and reproductive rights can be traced back to the struggles faced by women during this transformative period. In conclusion, the Industrial Revolution marked a significant turning point in the roles of women in society and the workforce. As women entered factories and organized for their rights, they challenged traditional gender norms and laid the groundwork for future generations of activists. The legacy of women's labor during this period remains relevant today, as we continue to confront issues of gender inequality in the workplace. As we move forward in our exploration, we will examine the impact of industrialization on social reform movements and the fight for equality. The Industrial Revolution sparked not only economic and technological change, but also a wave of social reform movements aimed at addressing the myriad social issues that arose in its wake. The rapid industrialization of society created new challenges, including poverty, child labor, inadequate housing, and public health crises. In response, activists and reformers emerged to advocate for change, laying the groundwork for significant social progress in the years to come. As cities expanded and populations grew, the stark contrast between wealth and poverty became increasingly evident. While industrialization generated immense profits for factory owners and entrepreneurs, many workers lived in dire conditions, struggling to make ends meet. Reformers began to highlight the plight of the working class and the urgent need for social justice. Social critics such as Charles Dickens and Friedrich Engels drew attention to the harsh realities of industrial life through their writings, exposing the exploitation and suffering faced by workers. One of the most pressing issues during this period was child labor. Factories often employed young children to work long hours under dangerous conditions, prioritizing profit over the well-being of the most vulnerable members of society. Reformers recognized the moral imperative to protect children and sought to raise awareness about the consequences of child labor. Activists organized campaigns to limit the working hours of children and advocate for their right to education. The Factory Acts, a series of legislative measures introduced in Britain, represented a significant milestone in the fight against child labor. These acts established regulations governing the hours children could work and improved working conditions in factories. The tireless efforts of reformers, combined with public outcry, ultimately led to the implementation of laws that aimed to protect children and promote their welfare. Public health also emerged as a critical issue during the Industrial Revolution. The rapid urbanization and overcrowding in cities created unsanitary living conditions, leading to the spread of diseases such as cholera and typhus. Reformers recognized the importance of addressing public health crises and advocating for sanitation improvements. Figures like Edwin Chadwick championed the need for clean water, proper sewage systems, and improved living conditions for urban populations. The establishment of public health initiatives marked a significant shift in societal attitudes toward health and well-being. Governments began to recognize their responsibility to protect the health of citizens and invested in infrastructure improvements to combat disease. The creation of public health boards and the implementation of sanitary reforms laid the foundation for modern public health systems. In addition to labor and public health reforms, the Industrial Revolution also spurred movements advocating for women's rights, education, and social equality. The suffrage movement gained momentum as women sought the right to vote and challenge the inequalities they faced in society. Activists like Emmeline Pankhurst and Susan B. Anthony became prominent figures in the fight for women's rights, emphasizing the importance of political participation as a means of achieving social change. Education reform was another critical aspect of social reform movements during this time. Recognizing the importance of education in empowering individuals and breaking the cycle of poverty, reformers campaigned for universal access to education. The establishment of public schools and educational institutions marked a significant advancement in the pursuit of knowledge and opportunity for all, particularly for the working class and marginalized groups. The interconnectedness of various reform movements during the Industrial Revolution highlighted the broader struggle for social justice. Activists recognized that issues of poverty, labor rights, and gender equality were intertwined, and collective action was necessary to effect meaningful change. The development of grassroots organizations, advocacy groups, and coalitions reflected the growing consciousness of social responsibility among citizens. As the Industrial Revolution progressed, the impact of social reform movements began to manifest in legislative changes and shifts in public policy. The advocacy of reformers paved the way for the establishment of labor laws, public health initiatives, and educational reforms that would shape the landscape of modern society. In conclusion, the social reform movements that emerged during the Industrial Revolution represented a critical response to the challenges posed by rapid industrialization. Activists and reformers played a pivotal role in advocating for the rights of workers, children, and marginalized groups, laying the foundation for significant social progress. The legacy of these movements continues to inspire contemporary efforts to address social inequalities and promote justice. As we continue our exploration, we will examine the impact of the Industrial Revolution on global trade and imperialism. The Industrial Revolution was a catalyst for globalization, fundamentally altering patterns of trade and contributing to the rise of imperialism. As industrialized nations sought new markets for their goods and access to raw materials, the dynamics of global trade shifted dramatically. The quest for resources and markets fueled colonial expansion, leading to profound consequences for societies around the world. As factories churned out goods at an unprecedented rate, industrialized nations found themselves with surplus products that needed to be sold. The demand for new markets to absorb these goods drove countries like Britain, France, and Germany to expand their imperial reach. Colonies became essential sources of raw materials, such as cotton, rubber, and minerals, which were crucial for fueling industrial production. This relationship between industrialization and imperialism created a new economic order that prioritized the interests of industrialized nations over those of colonized peoples. The impact of imperialism on colonized societies was profound and multifaceted. Indigenous populations faced the exploitation of their resources, displacement from their lands, and cultural erasure as colonial powers imposed their governance and values. The extraction of resources and labor in colonies served to enrich the imperial powers while perpetuating inequalities and injustices in the colonized regions. The trade networks established during this period laid the groundwork for the global economy we recognize today. The exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies became increasingly interconnected, with trade routes spanning continents. The establishment of global markets facilitated the movement of not only commodities but also people, ideas, and cultures, contributing to the complex tapestry of global interactions. In addition to economic exploitation, imperialism brought with it a sense of cultural superiority and ethnocentrism. Colonial powers often justified their actions through the belief in their cultural and racial superiority, viewing colonized peoples as civilizing projects. This ideology served to legitimize the subjugation of diverse cultures and societies, resulting in the imposition of Western values, education, and systems of governance. The effects of imperialism were not limited to the colonized regions. They also reverberated back to the imperial powers. The wealth generated from colonial exploitation contributed to the growth of industry and infrastructure in European nations. The profits gained from imperial ventures fueled economic expansion and solidified the power of industrialized nations on the global stage. However, the relationship between imperialism and industrialization was not without its contradictions. As colonies became integral to the industrial economy, they also fostered resistance and calls for independence. The experiences of colonized peoples varied widely, leading to different forms of resistance against imperial rule. Nationalist movements began to emerge, advocating for self-determination and the right to govern one's own land. The legacy of imperialism and the Industrial Revolution continues to shape global dynamics today. The impacts of colonialism, including economic disparities and social inequalities, remain evident in contemporary society. Understanding the historical context of global trade and imperialism is crucial to addressing the ongoing challenges and injustices that persist in the modern world. In conclusion, the Industrial Revolution played a pivotal role in transforming global trade and contributing to the rise of imperialism. As industrialized nations sought new markets and resources, they expanded their reach, often at the expense of colonized peoples. The interplay between industrialization and imperialism has left a lasting impact on the global landscape, shaping economies, cultures, and social dynamics in profound ways. As we conclude our exploration of the Industrial Revolution, we reflect on its legacy and the lessons it imparts for future generations. The Industrial Revolution was, at its core, a period of unparalleled technological advancement. Innovations emerged at a breathtaking pace, revolutionizing industries and fundamentally altering the way people lived and worked. This scene explores the most significant technological developments of the era, their implications for society, and how they paved the way for modern industrial practices. The revolution began in Britain in the late 18th century with key inventions such as the spinning jenny and the water frame, which transformed the textile industry. James Hargreaves invented the spinning jenny in 1764. Allowing a single worker to spin multiple spools of thread simultaneously. This innovation dramatically increased the efficiency of yarn production, enabling textile manufacturers to keep up with rising demand. The water frame, created by Richard Arkwright, took this further by harnessing water power to drive machinery, resulting in even greater productivity and the establishment of the first modern factories. As textile production surged, the need for mechanization spread to other sectors. The steam engine, developed by James Watt in the late 18th century, was one of the most revolutionary inventions of the time. It provided a reliable source of power for factories, trains, and ships, enabling goods to be produced and transported on an unprecedented scale. The steam engine represented a significant departure from traditional methods of power, such as water mills and human labor, and marked the beginning of the age of machinery. Transportation underwent a transformation as well. The construction of railways and the expansion of the steam-powered locomotive revolutionized travel and commerce. The Liverpool and Manchester Railway, opened in 1830, was the first railway line to rely exclusively on steam power and was a significant milestone in railway history. It connected industrial cities and facilitated the swift movement of goods and people, effectively shrinking distances and enhancing trade networks. Railroads became the arteries of the Industrial Revolution, linking regions and creating a sense of national unity that had been previously unattainable. The introduction of the telegraph also transformed communication during this period. Invented by Samuel Morse in the 1830s, the telegraph allowed for instantaneous communication over long distances. This innovation not only facilitated business transactions but also played a crucial role in journalism, allowing news to spread rapidly. The ability to communicate across vast distances changed the way people interacted and contributed to the globalization of information. Moreover, the Industrial Revolution sparked significant developments in metallurgy and engineering. The Bessemer process, invented by Henry Bessemer in the 1850s, allowed for the mass production of steel, which became the backbone of industrial infrastructure. Steel was used to build bridges, railways, and skyscrapers, fundamentally altering the landscape of cities and industries. The combination of iron and steel production techniques paved the way for modern construction practices and laid the foundation for future engineering marvels. However, the rapid pace of technological advancement did not come without consequences. The drive for efficiency and profit often led to unsafe working conditions in factories. Workers operated heavy machinery with little training, and accidents were common. Laborers faced long hours, low wages, and the constant threat of injury. As technology advanced, so too did the need for a labor force that could operate the new machines, resulting in the exploitation of workers and raising questions about the ethics of industrial progress. The social implications of technological advancements during the Industrial Revolution were profound. The mechanization of labor shifted the balance of power in society, leading to the rise of a new class of industrialists and entrepreneurs. This new bourgeoisie often clashed with the traditional aristocracy, leading to tensions and changes in the social hierarchy. The working class, or proletariat, emerged as a distinct social group, with shared experiences of exploitation and hardship. This class consciousness would lay the groundwork for future labor movements and social reforms. As we reflect on the technological advancements of the Industrial Revolution, it becomes clear that these innovations were not merely tools of progress. They were catalysts for societal change. The shift from agrarian economies to industrialized societies reshaped daily life, redefined relationships, and established the groundwork for the modern world. The legacy of this period continues to influence technology and industry today, as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of innovation in our own time. The Industrial Revolution triggered one of the most significant demographic shifts in history: urbanization. Millions of people moved from rural areas to cities in search of work, transforming the landscape of society and giving rise to new urban cultures. This scene explores the rapid growth of cities, the challenges of urban life, and the cultural transformations that accompanied this monumental shift. As factories sprang up in urban centers, the promise of employment attracted waves of migrants seeking better economic opportunities. The population of cities like Manchester, Liverpool, and Birmingham exploded during the 19th century. By the mid-1800s, Manchester became known as Cottonopolis, a hub of textile manufacturing that exemplified the urban transformation taking place across England. Streets that once echoed with the sounds of rural life were replaced by the clatter of machinery and the bustle of workers. However, the rapid influx of people into cities led to overcrowding and dire living conditions. Many new urban residents found themselves in cramped and unsanitary housing, often living in tenement buildings with little access to clean water or proper sanitation. The lack of infrastructure to support the growing population resulted in public health crises, with diseases like cholera and typhoid fever spreading rapidly in densely populated areas. The environmental impact of urbanization was equally significant. Industrial cities emitted smoke and pollution from factories, contributing to the degradation of air quality and the health of residents. Rivers became contaminated with industrial waste, leading to further public health concerns. The challenges of urban living prompted reformers to advocate for better sanitation, housing, and public health initiatives. Despite the difficulties, urban life also fostered cultural and social changes that shaped modern society. Cities became vibrant centers of innovation, creativity, and intellectual exchange. The rise of coffee houses, theaters, and public parks provided spaces for people to gather, share ideas, and participate in cultural activities. The arts flourished in urban settings, with literature, music, and visual arts reflecting the complexities of modern life. The emergence of new social classes added to the dynamic nature of urban life. The bourgeoisie, comprising industrialists and professionals, sought to distinguish themselves from the working class. The development of consumer culture began to take root as new goods and services became available. Department stores emerged, catering to the desires of the growing middle class and offering an array of products that symbolized status and modernity. However, the stark contrast between the wealthy and the poor in urban environments raised questions about social justice and equity. The working class faced exploitation in factories, often earning meager wages while the industrialists amassed fortunes. The growing awareness of class disparities fueled labor movements and social reform efforts aimed at improving working conditions and advocating for workers' rights. As the Industrial Revolution progressed, cities became sites of activism and social change. The rise of labor unions and political movements was closely tied to the experiences of urban workers. The push for better wages, reasonable working hours, and improved conditions found a voice in organized labor, leading to strikes and protests that demanded justice. Moreover, urbanization led to the diversification of communities as people from different regions and backgrounds came together. Immigrants played a crucial role in shaping the urban landscape, contributing to the cultural tapestry of cities. Their experiences enriched the social fabric and highlighted the complexities of identity in an industrialized world. In conclusion, the urbanization of the Industrial Revolution was a transformative process that reshaped societies and cultures. While cities offered opportunities for economic advancement and cultural exchange, they also posed significant challenges related to living conditions, public health, and social inequality. The legacy of urbanization during this period continues to resonate today, as we navigate the complexities of modern city life and work toward creating inclusive and sustainable urban environments. The Industrial Revolution brought with it profound changes not only to society and the economy but also to the environment. As industries expanded and cities grew, the ecological consequences of industrialization became increasingly apparent. This scene examines the environmental impacts of the Industrial Revolution, the responses to these changes, and the long-term implications for future generations. The transition from agrarian societies to industrial economies marked a significant turning point in humanity's relationship with nature. The extraction of natural resources, including coal, timber, and minerals, accelerated during this period. Coal, in particular, became the dominant energy source for factories and transportation, leading to increased demand for mining operations. The consequences of coal mining were far-reaching, resulting in deforestation, soil erosion, and pollution of air and water sources. The burning of fossil fuels in factories and steam engines released vast amounts of carbon dioxide and other pollutants into the atmosphere. This industrial activity contributed to the degradation of air quality, leading to respiratory diseases and other health issues for workers and urban residents. The visible smoke that billowed from factories became a symbol of industrial progress, but also a harbinger of environmental decline. Rivers and streams that once provided clean water became contaminated with industrial waste and sewage. The ecological balance of local ecosystems was disrupted, leading to declines in fish populations and other aquatic life. The pollution of waterways not only affected the environment but also posed significant risks to public health, as communities relied on these sources for drinking water. As the negative consequences of industrialization became evident, some individuals and groups began to advocate for environmental protection and conservation. Early environmental movements emerged in response to the degradation of natural landscapes and the loss of biodiversity. Writers and naturalists, such as John Muir and Henry David Thoreau, emphasized the importance of preserving nature and raised awareness about the need for sustainable practices. The environmental challenges of the Industrial Revolution also prompted debates about industrial growth and its long-term viability. Critics of unchecked industrial expansion called for more responsible approaches to resource management and urban planning. They argued that the pursuit of profit should not come at the expense of the environment and future generations. The response to environmental degradation during this period laid the groundwork for modern environmentalism. As awareness of ecological issues grew, legislation and regulations were introduced to mitigate the impacts of industrialization. These early efforts were significant steps toward recognizing the interconnectedness of human activity and the environment. However, the legacy of the Industrial Revolution continues to shape contemporary environmental challenges. The patterns of consumption and resource exploitation established during this era persist today, contributing to climate change and environmental crises. The lessons learned from the past inform current debates about sustainability, responsible consumption, and the need for a transition to renewable energy sources. In conclusion, the environmental impacts of the Industrial Revolution were profound and multifaceted. While the era ushered in unprecedented technological and economic advancements, it also brought significant ecological challenges that continue to resonate today. As we navigate the complexities of modern industrial practices and their environmental consequences, it is essential to draw on the lessons of history to build a more sustainable future. The Industrial Revolution not only transformed the production of goods but also gave rise to a new consumer culture that fundamentally altered societal norms and expectations. As mass production made goods more accessible and affordable, consumerism emerged as a defining characteristic of modern society. This scene explores the rise of consumer culture during the Industrial Revolution, its implications for individuals and society, and its enduring legacy. With the advent of factories and mechanized production, goods that were once considered luxury items became available to a broader segment of the population. The textile industry, for example, produced clothing at unprecedented rates, allowing more people to dress in styles that were previously unattainable. The availability of affordable clothing reflected the changing social dynamics, as more individuals sought to express their identities through fashion. The establishment of department stores and retail chains marked a significant shift in the way goods were marketed and consumed. These stores offered a wide range of products under one roof, transforming shopping into a social activity. The experience of browsing through goods, interacting with salespeople, and engaging in consumer choices became integral to the lives of urban dwellers. Shopping was no longer just a necessity. It became a leisure activity that allowed individuals to assert their identities and social status. Advertising played a pivotal role in shaping consumer culture during this period. As the market for goods expanded, so did the need for effective marketing strategies. Advertisements began to appear in newspapers and magazines, promoting products and creating a sense of desire among consumers. The messaging often appealed to emotions, emphasizing the benefits of owning certain goods and associating them with social status and modernity. The rise of consumer culture was not without its critics. Some intellectuals and social reformers voiced concerns about the implications of excessive consumption. They argued that the pursuit of material goods could lead to a shallow existence, detracting from meaningful experiences and relationships. The idea of conspicuous consumption, popularized by sociologist Thorstein Veblen, suggested that individuals often purchase goods not just for their utility but to demonstrate their wealth and social standing. Additionally, the emphasis on consumerism contributed to changes in social values and relationships. The traditional notions of community and family began to shift as individuals increasingly identified themselves as consumers. The pressures of consumer culture led to a cycle of desire and dissatisfaction, with individuals constantly seeking the latest trends and products to fill emotional voids. The impact of the Industrial Revolution on consumer culture was felt globally as well. As industrialized nations sought to expand their markets, they exported their goods and values to other regions. The rise of global trade networks facilitated the spread of consumer culture, influencing societies around the world. The exchange of products, ideas, and lifestyles contributed to the emergence of a global marketplace and interconnected consumer behaviors. Moreover, the growth of the middle class during the Industrial Revolution was a significant driver of consumer culture. As individuals experienced upward mobility and increased disposable income, they sought to enjoy the benefits of industrialization. This burgeoning middle class played a crucial role in shaping consumer preferences and driving demand for new products. In conclusion, the rise of consumer culture during the Industrial Revolution was a transformative development that reshaped societal norms and expectations. The accessibility of goods, the emergence of department stores, and the power of advertising created a new landscape of consumption. While consumer culture offered individuals opportunities for self-expression and enjoyment, it also raised important questions about values, identity, and the meaning of fulfillment in a rapidly changing world. As we navigate contemporary consumerism, the lessons learned from the Industrial Revolution remain relevant in understanding the complexities of modern life. The Industrial Revolution not only transformed economies and societies but also profoundly influenced the realms of art and literature. As the world underwent rapid change, artists and writers responded to the shifting landscape in their work, capturing the complexities of modern life. This scene explores how the Industrial Revolution inspired artistic movements, shaped literary themes, and contributed to a new understanding of the human experience. In the realm of visual arts, the Industrial Revolution gave rise to movements such as Romanticism and Realism. Romantic artists sought to convey the emotional responses to industrialization, emphasizing the beauty of nature and the individual's struggle against the encroachment of machinery. The works of artists like J.M.W. Turner and Caspar David Friedrich reflected the awe and terror of nature in the face of industrial progress. Their paintings often depicted dramatic landscapes, showcasing the power of nature and the fragility of humanity in an increasingly mechanized world. Conversely, the realist movement emerged as a response to the societal changes brought about by industrialization. Realist artists focused on depicting everyday life, often highlighting the struggles of the working class. Artists like Gustave Courbet sought to portray the realities of labor and the social injustices faced by individuals in urban settings. Their works challenged idealized representations of life and brought attention to the harsh conditions experienced by the proletariat. In literature, the Industrial Revolution inspired a new wave of storytelling that reflected the complexities of modern existence. Authors such as Charles Dickens and Émile Zola explored themes of social inequality, labor exploitation, and the challenges faced by individuals in rapidly changing societies. Dickens' novels, including Oliver Twist and Hard Times, illuminated the plight of the poor and the consequences of industrialization on human relationships. His vivid characterizations and social commentary resonated with readers, prompting discussions about the need for reform. Zola, a key figure in the naturalist movement, employed a scientific approach to storytelling, portraying characters shaped by their environments and circumstances. His works, such as Germinal, explored the struggles of miners and laborers, emphasizing the impact of industrialization on their lives. Zola's unflinching depictions of poverty and exploitation challenged readers to confront the realities of their society. The Industrial Revolution also inspired new literary genres, including science fiction and dystopian literature. Authors like H.G. Wells and Jules Verne envisioned futures shaped by technological advancements, exploring the implications of progress and innovation. Their stories often served as cautionary tales, raising questions about the ethical dimensions of scientific discovery and the potential consequences of unchecked industrialization. Moreover, the period saw the emergence of new forms of artistic expression. The invention of photography in the 19th century revolutionized visual art, providing a new medium for capturing the world. Photographers documented the changing landscape of industrial cities, the lives of workers, and the beauty of nature. The photographic lens became a tool for social commentary, shedding light on the conditions of urban life and the experiences of marginalized communities. As we examine the impact of the Industrial Revolution on art and literature, it becomes evident that these creative expressions served as reflections of society's hopes, fears, and aspirations. Artists and writers grappled with the complexities of modern life, using their work to explore themes of identity, belonging, and the search for meaning in an ever-changing world. The legacy of this period is still felt today as contemporary artists and authors continue to engage with the challenges and opportunities presented by technological progress. In conclusion, the Industrial Revolution profoundly influenced the realms of art and literature, inspiring movements and shaping narratives that explored the human experience in a rapidly changing society. The artistic responses to industrialization captured the tensions between progress and tradition, beauty and despair, and individuality and community. As we reflect on the legacy of this transformative period, we recognize the enduring power of art and literature to illuminate the complexities of life and to challenge us to envision a more just and equitable world.